Okay, thanks everyone for joining today. Before we get started with Quiddity, just a couple tips on Zoom. So if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A feature or just drop a question via the chat feature and we'll address all those questions towards the end of the webinar. So let's jump straight into it today. I'm just sharing my screen here and we are now about to log into Quiddity. Before we log in, I'll just give you a bit of a background of what Quiddity is. So it's a CRM and workflow tool that's specifically designed for small businesses. What we had found in the market was that there are a lot of tools out there which are designed for enterprise and large business, but don't really scale down well enough to the small business. Or there's a lot of micro apps that small businesses are using, and that creates a problem in itself because all of a sudden you have 12 or more different apps that don't communicate with each other. So what we wanted to do was build a platform that you could work off, and it would be the platform that might connect to one or two other apps, but basically you can work directly from Quiddity to get a full view of how your business is running. So I'll just quickly log into our demo environment. This demo environment is set up with data that's based off an IT professional services company, but any professional services company and some other companies as well actually use Quiddity very successfully. So it's quite a broad sort of tool that can be used across different types of businesses. So now I've just logged in as an owner of the business, and you can see here that as soon as you log in, you have a big dashboard that you can follow. It has a number of different indicators of how the business is running, about how many different leads, quotes, sales orders, tasks, invoices are there. So this is sort of an activity of what's happening on a weekly, monthly or quarterly basis. And if you move down, you can see that there's more widgets that can be configured. You can switch these on and off depending on what you want to see on your dashboard. And you can also control who sees what on the dashboard via the permissions. So here we've got my records. So I can easily sort of see any of the records here, from leads to quotes to invoices or calendars and to-dos that I'm working on personally. And it just gives me a quick and easy way to work on these records. I've also got the to-do widget over here, which is basically just your daily notes scribbled down on a piece of paper, where you can put them into Quiddity instead now, and it allows you just to mark them off as they're done. You can set a flag on them to prioritize them. You can actually assign them to other users as well. And this also integrates with the mobile app, which is really handy, because if you're on the road and you need to see what to-dos you have on for that day, you can just open up your phone and it will bring that straight up. As we go down further, you can see that there's a typical sales funnel, which is more of the CRM sort of side of the Quiddity functionality, where you can build up your pipeline and you have different stages of the leads that you're generating. And this will give you a good indication of where everything's sitting so that you can forecast the amount of business coming in. We've also got revenue reporting. And as you can see, because it's just the start of the new year, there's not a lot of things happening on this graph, but what it really does essentially is will give you a good comparison between your invoices and your sales orders, so that you can make sure that your cash flow is going to be healthy. So making sure that when you're generating a lot of sales orders, you're also generating enough invoices so that the cash is coming in to support that. Moving further down, we've got some stuff which is purely related to the sales. So if you've got a sales team, you can see that there's a leaderboard here. You've got active leads, so the best ones that are currently open, and a lead conversion summary. So this is a bit of a snapshot about the leads that are currently on hand and what's been converted. As I said before, you can completely configure these dashboards, so you can switch them on and off as per your requirement. And then moving further down, we've got projects. So this gives you a quick snapshot of the active projects that you might have on. You can quickly just change between the different projects, and you can see the Gantt chart of the different tasks that are there. You can also see some stats around the completion, the status of the project, and what's billable versus non-billable in terms of the time that's been allocated to it. You have some products and services here as well. So what this would do, if you had active data for this financial year or this calendar year, it would show you the top 10 products and services that have been sold for that year. But as it's the start of the year and it's a demo environment, currently there's nothing displaying in this widget at the moment. So moving down to the next part is the customer lifecycle. You can see here that basically you could select any customer that you want, and you will be able to see the complete life cycle of what business you've done with that customer. And that gives you a really good indication of when you should be following up with customers. If you've got a 6-month gap between doing any business with a customer, you can potentially start giving them a phone call or dropping them an email to follow up and see how they're going. So it's a very powerful tool just to understand how much a customer has spent with you over a period of time and how regularly they're spending with you as well. And then the final 2 widgets are related to the marketing campaigns. So once you generate campaigns in Quiddity, you can actually track how well you're doing. And these 2 widgets give you a good understanding of basically the expected revenue and the actual revenue of any one of those campaigns that you set up. So that's the dashboard in its whole. We will touch a bit more on reporting at a later stage, but now I just want to go through basically at a high level the whole functionality and how Quiddity flows from one side of the business to the other. So I'm just going to click on the navigation bar here, which gives you quite a good understanding of how we design the product. Basically, most businesses would generally start with marketing so that you can bring in new customers. That could be in the form of digital marketing via social media, or it could be in the form of networking as well. But essentially, you want to be tracking your campaigns, whichever type of marketing it is, so that you can allocate leads and opportunities against that campaign. And then over a time period, you'll be able to see what marketing activities are actually more successful and where you should actually be spending more of your time. So it will give you a really good insight as to how you can successfully grow your business. Moving on from that, we've got sales, and under sales, we've got 3 major functions. The first being contacts. Now, contacts is really the core of any system like this. Everything is based around a contact. Within Quiddity's terms, a contact can be a company or an individual. It could even just be a family friend or family member. This contact database will sync with your phone as well, with iOS and Android. So you can literally put any of your contacts in this system and then easily have them accessible via your mobile phone. But the difference between the 2 types of contacts is a company can have multiple locations and multiple contact people beneath it, whereas an individual obviously can just be maybe a sole trader or a friend. And you can further define the contacts, but I'll touch further into that a bit later. Moving on from there, we've got leads. So once you've done a bit of marketing and you put your contacts into the system, you can start generating leads. And this allows you to track the sales business flow. So basically, as you develop that lead and qualify that lead, you can actually track that within the system, which obviously flows through to those reports. Once you've got the lead to a good enough stage, you obviously want to provide a quote. And this is where you can actually build a document with line items and pricing and all that terms and conditions that you need to get someone to sign so that you can actually engage with them. From there, we move into the workspace, and there's quite a lot of features in this area. So from the quote, generally the standard flow that we follow is generating sales orders and then moving on to invoicing. But all of these other features within Workspace are linked through to that. So we've got tasks and to-dos, meetings and reminders, purchase orders as well, in case you want to be generating that to track the amount of business you're doing with suppliers. We've got timesheets as well, so you can track your time against any of these records and make sure that if you have another team member and you want to have visibility on what they've been working on, you can get some really good insights with that as well. And mail drop boxes, which is quite a new feature that we've introduced, and it actually allows you to communicate with your customers and copy in a specific email address which you will get when you sign up with Quiddity. And that basically tracks all of that communication over email within Quiddity. So at any stage you can come back here and see that there's been a communication with a customer. And where that really comes in handy, if you have someone that goes on leave and you want to understand where the conversation got up to, if they've been using this feature, you'll be able to see the full history of the conversation so you can take it over from there. Moving over to projects now, you can actually create projects within Quiddity and then track time against them. You can create tasks and purchase orders and invoices under that project, and all of that flows back through into the reporting. And then moving on to service delivery, we've got contracts. Under contracts, you can either create an ad hoc contract or a monthly contract. So if you have an agreement with a customer where they might have some services with you that are billed on a monthly basis, you can actually develop that into a contract and track everything in the contract. Or you might just want to have a once-off contract of a block of services with a customer that they can utilize over a time period. And that can also be created as an ad hoc contract and everything tracked against it. Moving over to the files. So obviously we have business documents. So anytime you create a new contact within Quiddity, they will automatically have their own folder created. And at any stage that you upload a document or link a document from an external system into this Quiddity, it will put it into the respective contact folder. I will go into more detail of all these features in a minute so you can actually see how they work, but I just wanted to give you the high-level run through in a logical order before jumping in. We also have knowledge base articles, and under knowledge base articles you can actually put in useful information like important phone numbers or some processes that you have in your organization to follow, and you can create those knowledge base articles within Quiddity itself. And that's integrated with the global search as well. So if you ever have staff looking for important information, they can go to the search and type in some keywords, and that information will be easy for them to find. Then finally onto the reports. So anything in those different modules that we've gone through, the whole reason that you go through these processes and enter all this information is so you can actually get the reporting out of the system. And you can see here that we've got quite a lot of different reports for all those different modules, and the reporting is very powerful within Quiddity. I will give some examples of that towards the end as well. Now, I'm not going to go into setup and settings at the moment, purely because that's just about setting up the organization, and I'll touch on that right at the very end because it's more of a next step. So what I want to do now is actually, first of all, jump into a contact record so I can show you how all of these features come back around into that contact, and you get a 360-degree view on how you're dealing with any one of your contacts within the system. So I'm just opening up this list. Bear with me just a moment. I think our Wi-Fi might be struggling at the moment. There we go. So now in this list, you can see that these are all the contacts that I've entered into this system. And basically I can start working from this list to understand a bit more about the contact. So if I pick on any one of these, just as an example, I click into the contact and you can see that there's a lot more details on this screen about the contact. So as I mentioned before, there's either a company or an individual that you can manage, and then you can start tracking all of this different information. I won't go through all of it, but some of the important points are a relationship type. So you can have any type of relationship with a customer. It could be a suspect, a prospect, investor, customer, whatever you want. It could be a family member as well. You can actually configure those different relationship types and set up as many as you want. And that just gives you a good way of organizing your contacts within the system. As I move down further, you can see that there's some standard information about what industry they're from. If you want to track NPS scoring, which is a concept around making sure customers are giving you good feedback, you can do that within the system as well. You can track the number of employees or the rating. The rating actually integrates with the call cycle feature. So if you give them a high priority rating, then the system can actually notify you that you need to get in touch with them on a monthly basis. Moving down to tags, you can actually set up tags on top of all this information so that, again, you can further filter your contact list. So sometimes you want to separate contacts into different categories, and the tags is a really good feature for doing so. But along the top here, you can see that there's all of these different tabs as well. So if I go into locations, you can see that this is a company, so I could potentially set up multiple locations if I want. I can also go into the contact person tab and set up multiple contact people. There's also some more information around financial details that can be set up that have an impact. So basically with the invoicing part of the system, you can set it up so that you have standard terms of trade for that customer. It might be cash on delivery, or it might be that they have a 7-day period to pay the invoice. And on top of that, you can have an invoice grace period. So you might give them a little bit more buffer to close off those accounts before the system will start prompting you to follow up with them. You can also track some information like their annual revenue or your hourly rate for that customer if you want to track that information. There's also social profile. So these days with social media, it's important to keep track of your customers and all of their different touch points. So you can actually start putting in the URLs to their social media profiles here. And if there's a profile that you want to add that's not already here, you can add more. So if you want to add Pinterest or Instagram, you can just click on this button and you can start adding more fields to that so you can track all that information. Activity records gives you a really good understanding of the communication that's happened with the customer. So you can see here that over a period of time, any of these records that have been created for the contact, you can see that the system automatically records this information as it's happening, and it gives you a date and time so that you can see the full history of your interactions with that contact. From here, you can also email the customers from the system. You can add special notes against the contact, and you can also book in meeting requests. The next tab is leads. So as you start building up leads within the system, you can view them all here, which are relevant to that contact. And then we've also got campaigns. In this contact, there's no campaign that has been set up yet, but if there were any campaign that they had been part of, you would see all the details here. You've got records as well. And in this case, any of the invoices or sales orders or projects or purchase orders, they all show up on this one tab so that, again, you can see every interaction you've had with the customer since working with them. And the final one is business documents. So like I said earlier, any customer that gets created as a contact will have their own folder. So you can either upload documents directly to the contact. You can either link it to Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive. So you can integrate with those different systems if you're already using them, or you can just generate a custom link. So if you have a different external system that allows you to generate a custom link, you can also put that in here so that from one single place, you can always find all the relevant information for that customer. Over here, we've got an action tab as well. So from this screen, I can quickly create projects or tasks or invoices or any sort of record for that customer. So you can see that most of the features I've touched on going through that high level section are integrated purely with the contacts. And so you get a really good insight to all of the different things that you're working on with these customers. Quickly, I'll just move into the workspace, and I'm just going to open a sales order so that I can show you the sort of high level workflow that we follow within Quiddity. So I'm just clicking on this record now. And you can see up here, you've got the status of the current record I'm looking at. So it can be a draft, you can go to an approval. So you can see here, these are all the different statuses. This one is obviously closed, so it's been completed. But further down on this screen, you can see that these are the sort of key steps that we generally encourage people to go through with this system, where it would start as a lead. You nurture that lead and you convert it into a quote. Once they've signed off on that quote, you convert it into a sales order, which allows you from this screen to then go ahead and create any purchase orders if necessary, and also create invoices against that sales order so that you can make sure that you're billing them on time. One of the really powerful features of Quiddity that many other systems don't have is that you can actually split the invoicing as well. So the sales order might be a $10,000 project that you're working on. And from this sales order, you can actually generate an invoice for a 30% deposit. And then you might generate another invoice later down the track for another 20%, and then a final 50%. And it all will show up as invoices on the system here and give you a really good understanding that, of course, when they sign off on the quote, you need to make sure that by the end of the project, you've actually invoiced them for the full amount. So that's the high level flow of going from the lead all the way through to invoicing. If you have any questions, please start dropping them through Zoom. There's a Q&A tool or a chat feature. Either one's fine, and I'll start looking into them and addressing them. Some other really good things that I wanted to point out are some of the new features that have recently come on board. So with the timesheets, as you're logging time, you can relate that time to different records. But we've also got the stopwatch feature here now, which allows you to start tracking time against anything that you're working on. So I could be working on a project, or in this case, I'm actually working on an invoice. And as I'm checking out the details on this, maybe doing some communication with other team members, or checking what other work has been done in terms of tasks on this invoice, this is going to track the time that I spend, and I can pause that or I can stop it. And as soon as I click stop, it automatically comes up with the ability for me to put in the time that I've spent. Obviously, in this case, it was only 23 seconds, so it hasn't put anything in here, so I could go ahead and edit that. It also allows you'll see here that it's related to the invoice of the screen that I'm working on. You can also relate it to a task, and you can also assign it to a manager. So if you want to have an approval process in place where timesheets need to be approved, you can do that. You can also configure the timesheets so that it's automatically approved, so that you don't have a hassle of constantly approving people's timesheets. And that way, from a reporting point of view, at a later stage, you can have really good insight as to what people are working on. You can also select billable or non-billable. So if you want to track what's going to be billable time that needs to be invoiced, you can do that with the timesheet module as well. So this new tool of the stopwatch feature really extends the previous timesheet module to another level, where it gives some of your staff a really good ability to easily track their time. Apart from that, there's some key integrations that I wanted to mention. MailChimp is one of them. So with the campaigns, you can connect your Quiddity account to MailChimp, which is a free mailing tool. It's free for up to 2,000 emails a month, so it's really good for small business. And basically what that will do is connect all of your contacts through to the MailChimp list that you can configure. So from MailChimp, you can send out all of those different emails to the different contacts. It also brings in any of the campaigns that you've created in MailChimp, and will actually tell you within Quiddity itself the open rates and the click-through rates of those emails. So you can get some reporting directly from MailChimp that comes back into Quiddity. Another really powerful integration that we have is the Xero integration. So if you're using Xero as your accounting software, you can easily configure that within Quiddity once you've signed up. Again, it's quite an easy process. You just switch the integration on, you click on Connect to Xero, and then you log into Xero, and that will actually sync your purchase orders and invoices through to Xero. And there's some configuration options here of how regularly you want that to sync, and also the default status that you want that to push into Xero. It could be submit for approval, so that it needs to be approved in Xero, or you can automatically have it approved once it's submitted from Quiddity. And again, the beauty of this is that once you start reconciling payments in Xero against any of those invoices, it will come straight back in to Quiddity. So you'll be able to see all of the payments showing up within Quiddity, and you'll know which customers have paid and which ones are overdue. Okay, so I think I'll move on to a couple of questions here. So we've got connection is fuzzy, dropping in and out. I hope that hasn't been a problem for everyone for the entire time. I just got that a minute ago, so hopefully everyone's been able to hear okay. This has been recorded though, so we will send out a recorded version in case there has been any technical issues like that, so you can all have a listen. Apart from that, there's a few other questions that have come through. First of all, this is a question that comes through every single time, is how much does it cost? So with Quiddity, there's two different options. You can either sign up to a monthly commitment, which is $25 per month per user, or you can sign up on an annual commitment, which gives you a bit of a discount. So you prepay for the whole year, and that's $20 per month per user. Okay, so there's a few other things that I'll do now is just quickly open up the reports so I can give you an understanding of what they look like. So I'm just going to open up the campaign comparison report, because again, this gives you a really good insight as to the complete life cycle of records entering your business and going through. So these are 3 different campaigns which have been set up, and you can see it gives you information of when they started, when they were created, the duration, the type of campaign. But then as you scroll down, it gives you more information around the budget and the actual costs. And it even goes down to the granular level of how many leads were generated, how many of those leads got converted into quotes, how many of those quotes got converted into sales orders, and how many of those sales orders got converted into invoices. And what that does is it gives you an exact dollar amount of what actually came into the business from the very beginning of the spend, when you spent the original budget. A lot of systems don't give you that. They'll give you some forecasted amounts, but we can actually give you the actual amount that you've got in your bank account from the campaigns that you've created from the beginning. So that's a really powerful report, because it allows you to compare all of the different campaigns, and you'll be able to see which ones are the most valuable to your business. And I'll quickly just go into another report for invoicing. So I'll just go into the summary report for invoicing. The user interface for most of the reports is very similar to this one. So this is a good one to give you an idea of the amount of detail that the system will give you. So here you can see all of the invoices that have been created. I'm just going to click on this date picker so that I can extend it to the previous quarter and apply that. So it's going to give me a lot more data. So from last October to December, now you can see all the different invoices and the status that they're met. So you can see that in October, there was 56K worth of invoicing. November was a better month. December, there was 55, but there's also some cancelled and awaiting payment. But one of the really good features is on the reporting is the amount of filtering that you can do. So all of the data that you put in the system, you can use this filtering tool to get exact reports on what you need, and you can actually save those filters as well for later viewing. The system gives you this nice graphical view as well, but it also breaks down the report into actual table view data. So from here, you can actually add columns and again, build the report to exactly how you want it to be looking. And then it will give you the insights that you need. You can also export this into a PDF or email it. I'll send export to Excel as well. So if you want to further define or look into that data, you can even export it into Excel and play with it further. That gives you a good amount of understanding of the reporting capabilities. So the last feature I just want to touch on is, just as we're wrapping up, is the feedback button. So we always like to encourage everyone that signs up for a trial or that's using Quiddity to provide feedback so that we can add that feedback to our pipeline and make sure that we're developing this product for the customers that have signed up. So you just click on that at any time. It will bring up a screen like this. You can give us some feedback. It gives us the details and you can attach a document. It automatically captures the screen that you're on, so we know exactly where you're talking about. And that goes straight through to our support team, who will be able to add that to our backlog. Or if it's an issue or some training that's required, we can also get in touch with you and arrange that. So there's no more questions that have come through at this stage. So I might wait one more minute. If anyone has any questions quickly, just drop me a line over chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, please feel free to sign up for a free trial. We'll send you all the details so that you can easily sign up, and feel free to get in touch with us to arrange another more detailed walkthrough once you've had a look into the product. We're happy to jump on an individual Zoom meeting with you and understand more about your business so we can advise on how Quiddity would suit that. And we'll send out a copy of this webinar as well, so if you need to refer to it again, you can feel free to do that as well. So no more questions have come through. So thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. Have a really wonderful Friday and a good weekend, and happy Australia Day for tomorrow.
Quiddity. Simple, beautiful workflow.